Welcome back to another video. In this one, we're going to cover the proper installation of a full return fuel system.
The engine is now in the car, the 2.5. Turbo's on. Most of everything is plumbed. Right now we're working on the fuel system, getting that plumbed. Here you can see the fuel pump top hat in the Miata. And I put this fitting on it, AN6 fitting, which is going to be the new return. And the factory outlet is still going to be the same outlet. The factory fuel line is now going to be the return, which will feed out of that. And then I ran this AN6 hose, which will be the new feed. And then I'll show you guys up in the engine bay where it's going to be routed. So now for the engine, we have the fuel line, which is obviously on the fuel tank in the back. Comes up here, I'm going to have to cut that off. And then I'm waiting for fitting, so it's not all the way done. But in the back port on the radium fuel rail, there'll be a 8AN orb to 6AN male, which will connect the fuel line, the feed. And then the strut tower brace would interfere with the pressure gauge. So that's a plug. This is going to be a plug. And then I have the fuel pressure regulator here with the pressure gauge, which feeds into the auxiliary port on the pressure regulator. And then the bottom port, instead of having the 6AN, which is on here now, I ordered a, I think whatever size, 6AN orb to 5/16 barb, which fits the factory fuel line, which is a return. The factory fuel line, or fuel outlet, is right here. And we're still going to use that for the fuel outlet, just with an AN6 line. And we have that coming out to a quick connect to a 6AN 180. And then I'll show you that where that feeds here. And then the other port here, I'll show you guys in photos. But we actually started the drill and then melted a 3/4 hole right here. I'll show you guys where that's at, like I said on the pictures. And then, so it's a 6AN through cell fitting. And on the bottom of that, I have a hose that goes back into the fuel bowl just to keep it filled up for the return. And this is the factory fuel line, but it's now the return line. So it has a 90 and then a 3/8 barb fitting. So another note with the injectors, these are the Injector Dynamics 1050s, and you can see here that gray piece, that's the top hat, and then there's a little aluminum, I don't know if you can see that, but it's right there. It's like a bottom adapter, and it clicks onto the injector, and it basically just sets that injector, the plug mostly, just a little bit higher to clear the head. So I'll show pictures of that in the video. And quick note on the fuel pump cover. So this is a little bit more than I needed to cut. I only needed to cut to like maybe here. I went all the way there. And then this did not need to cut out that circle. Anyway, I had to clearance that for that return line because of AN690. So I had to clearance that, which required cutting this. I kind of want to seal it. I'm not sure what I can cover that with to seal it, kind of like how it was, the firewall. But that will have to be a clearance if you're running a return system. Alright, so fuel pump's back together. The cover's on. Obviously the fuel pump itself is all in there. This is a fitting, this is the hole I cut. The wire, it's all plugged back in. Cover's back on. I know it's not sealed anymore, but it should be just fine. So that's all together. Now let's get the interior back together. Now the interior is back together from the fuel pump assembly, and if we look up here, I've got kind of some things laying around from startup. We'll get to that in the next video, but the fuel system's done. So I've got the AN6 line here to a 90. Well, it's AN6 to a 90, and then 8AN orb to 6AN male. There, it's plugged right here. Plugged on the front end, and then it has a regulator here with the 5/16 barb to the factory fuel line, which is the return, and then the pressure gauge, which this actually worked great. On first startup, only had 20 pounds of pressure, It's adjusted right here via this set screw. So pressure is easily adjusted. Got that set right, about 43 psi is factory. May bump that up, but for now that should be good. And as for the fuel line itself, the routing, underneath the car, it just runs along the factory fuel lines, just zip tied to them, and it comes up against the firewall, and it goes in the rail right there.
Thank you for watching this video. Tune into the next one to see the first fire up.